Hey, I have this small end table. I have the whole set of the coffee table and two end tables that I bought off of Facebook Marketplace, and I'm wanting to change the look of them. And so far I put, because there was a little bit of damage right here, I'm not going to worry about the texture of the damage, but I did want to make sure there was no bleed through. So I put on a coat of Dixie Belle Boss over the whole top. Then I came back and put another coat just over the area where there was a little indentation in it. And I practiced with, let me see if I can get this. I practiced with this wood graining tool today. And here's my practice board. And I'm going to be practicing some more and then doing that on the top. So I thought I would come in real quick and do this backwards to what I thought. I thought I would use, I thought I would start at the bottom and go up, but now I'm all weirded out and I'm going to start at the top and go down because I want to sort of blend down and then be able to blend back up. So I'm using Dixie Belle Caviar as my darkest color. Dixie Belle Gravel Road as my next gray, Dixie Belle Manatee Gray as my lighter one, and I'm gonna start with the Dixie Belle drop cloth on the top, and then I'll come back in with either the Gravel Road or the Caviar. I'll decide when we do that video and do the top when all this layer is dry, which of those colors, if maybe not even both of them, to use on the top along with our tool. So here we go. Make sure I can get this open. I can. All I have with me at my workshop today is a chip brush. I did the first coat on the sample board using a regular chip brush, and it left a lot of streaking. And I'm using the Dixie Belle chip brush now, which left a whole lot less streaking. And that's part of why I'm going from light down to dark. Is I'm not going to change brushes. I'm just going to keep going to the darker colors. These are called boats. They're like little restaurant French fry containers. And to keep from contaminating my paint, I'm going to use these boats. Try to get that off of there. And just get a quick coat of this on top. I'm about to go home for the weekend, and I wanted to have this table at least the first coat of it, and I'm getting really good coverage, way better coverage with this brush than I did with my regular chip brush. I use the other chip brushes quite a bit, and I get those at, gosh, what's the name of that store? Harbor Freight. I get those like 36 to a package for like $7 or $8 at Harbor Freight, and I use those a lot for dry brushing and quick little things that it doesn't matter what the texture is on the piece. But they, if you're wanting to do a set of tables or something like that, you're going to want a smoother surface, so it's better to use a better brush. Normally I would use probably the Paint Pixie number 12 or number 8, probably the number 12, and the natural bristle. That's my favorite brush to use, and that's what I'll bring back with me. Those are at my studio at home, and I didn't bring them today because I didn't know I would get to paint this today because I've had several other projects going on, but I'm going to get to a little bit more done than I anticipated. I do have on my apron from Helen at So Nifty, made that for me, and I love it, but I still don't want to get it on my sleeves. I am that girl who is going to get paint on me. Let me grab a little bit more. I don't want to waste any, so that's why I'm not pouring too much in here at a time. Dixie Belle is pretty inexpensive, but that still doesn't mean you should be wasteful. And I'm laying it on pretty thick. I'm not having any drag. If I do start having any drag, I have a mister bottle here, and I will mist it a little bit to help it flow. Right now I'm just going for making sure all my brush strokes are going to be in the same direction and getting it on, and I most times will slap it on there and then go back over it to make sure those brush strokes are good. And I've tried to decide whether to go on down just a little bit on the next layer with this color. What I think I'm going to do is, and this is another tip if you're wanting your finish to look more professional, always make sure and get underneath the ledge there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that in my lightest color because I have it on my brush already and I have a little bit left in my thing, and I'm not worried about getting this here because I'm going to cover that up in a minute anyway. Dixie Belle is a chalky style paint, mineral based, but it also has a bit of acrylic in it as well, which means you don't have to put a top coat over it the way you do on some of the chalky style paints. You always have to have a top coat in order to protect it. On top of these, I will use a top coat. The Dixie Belle Gator Hide is a really, really tough top coat that's good for surfaces that get a lot of use, like tabletops. I probably won't put it on the legs, but I will put it on the top and any of the surfaces that I think will get a lot of wear and tear and use just to protect it. I'll probably put about 3 coats of that on there because I don't want someone to get this table later on and be disappointed when part of the finish comes off and end up having to refinish the entire piece because of that. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Yep, go ahead. Sorry about that. We have a sauna back there, and apparently they're either going to use it or turn it on or something. But we don't mind, right? Okay. Closing that up so it doesn't dry out. And then the next lightest one is the Manatee Gray. I'm going to do the same thing and pour some in. That really needed to be stirred. Let's see what I have to start with. I'm going to start with the end of a small paintbrush. Okay, that looks good. Is Miss Palmer coming?
Candy wasn't sure, so we...
Okay, Mary said she didn't think she was because of not having her machine yet or something.
Yeah, because I asked
Yeah.
Candy, she said just to preheat it, just in case.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Do you have that paint inventory
Yeah,
from yesterday?
Sherry was supposed to send it.
Okay, I'll look if it's in there in a little while. Okay, I'm gonna go, and I'm just gonna go down even on the legs part here and around the top part here in the Manatee Gray and just slap it on. We'll come back at the end. I was saying that, you know, you don't have to have a top coat on here, but when you can use all the waxes and things to get different techniques and other colors to go on here. So we will go over all of these details through the decorative pieces and through all that with the dark waxes at the end of this to, you know, to give it as much detail as we can. So I want to go around the legs a little bit farther down than we did on, you know, the top piece. Like I don't want it to go straight across there. I want on the legs to come down at just a little bit further. Just to give it a little bit more interest and kind of drag that down. But I am, you know, thinking about my brush strokes, which directions they're going and all that kind of stuff. Dixie Belle has a lot of really cool finishes for a company that doesn't have to have something over it. They have a lot of cool things you can go over it. Different furnishing waxes, metallic waxes, metallic paints, finishes like rust from iron, you know, iron rust, copper patina, think it's a bronze patina, all kinds of really cool finishes that you can use. And I do use those on other projects. I've done some pretty cool projects. But this one I'm wanting to be pretty, pretty plain Jane, to where they'll, you know, there'll be a larger audience of people who may be interested in it. Because sometimes you can't make every piece you do boho and cool, even though I would love to. I can't, you know, it takes a little while longer for those to find a new home. And sometimes you get some pieces like these that you hope find their new home pretty quick. So that's my goal. Remembering to get inside the legs, all sides of the legs, with each of the colors that we come down with. And there is a little bit of the drop cloth, the white color from the top that I sort of slouched around there whenever I was doing the underneath color, and that's blending in with this gray and leaving a little bit of interest, which is very nice, and that's not something I have to work at. It's just happening for me. I might have lucked up into getting just the perfect amount out of this color. How cool is that? What I sometimes like to do, and you know, sort of what my intention is with these videos, is to let you see that you can do something cool very quick, very easy, without a lot of time, effort, or supplies, and change up, you know, the look of your living room in an afternoon. You know, I'm real good about, my husband goes to work with it looking one way and comes home and it looks another way, and I don't have to buy new furniture for that. I'll paint it. So how cool is that? This paint is, ooh, wrong, that's odd, that's the wrong lid. No wonder it had something in it. This paint is $9.99 for this little thing, and I'm not going to use a quarter. I'll probably use 2/3 of each of these sample size bottles, jars, on the whole project, on all 3 tables. Another thing that I did that I haven't mentioned yet, and I'm going to sit here so that I can get close to these. I had eye surgery, so my vision's not as good as it always was. My eye surgery failed, so I'll put it that way. But I also used, and I don't have it sitting here to show you, I don't think. I did tell you about the Dixie Belle Boss, but they also have what's called White Lightning, which is a TSP product, and I used this rag right here. See how dirty it is? These tables didn't look dirty, but I used that TSP product on here, and that's the nasty that came off of them when you couldn't even visibly see that there was. So that's part of the prep. I didn't have to prep the, you know, the whole thing or anything, because it is a mineral-based paint, and it is, or a chalky-based paint. It is going to go on there real good, but you know what, I want to get underneath, like right here, I want to get that area too. I think that would, just in case. I didn't have to put like a primer on there, and I did that on the top because there had been, you know, some previous damage to it. If it was too glossy of a surface, I would have used Slick Stick, which is their product that helps paint stick to slick surfaces. But anyway, on these legs, this paint is going to stick just fine. I'm not going to have to worry about it peeling or coming off. But the White Lightning, what it does other than clean, and you see all the nasty on that rag that came off of here, it's going to take off years of, you know, lemon pledge, dust and grime, and things that people may have used to clean their furniture with in the past, or all the things that are on there. But it also deglosses just a little bit, just enough to not rough up the surface like sandpaper would. If it had been sanded, I would have had to put primer on the whole thing to keep from having tan and bleed through from the bare wood. But it just deglosses just enough for the paint to have a little bit of tooth to grab from. I would have been mad at myself if I would have noticed this later on, so I'm glad I sat down to do this so that I can could see it. It's just another one of those, you know, little things that you'll notice the difference whenever a person has really thought about painting their piece. Of course, I'm not going to, some people may paint this hole underneath. I'm not going to do that. Even a table manufacturer doesn't do all that. If there was ever an instance that it needed it, of course I would, but it doesn't need it in this instance, so I'm again not changing a brush. I'm going to get another boat. We're going to use the gravel road and do the majority of the legs here, kind of try to blend in a little bit with this Manatee Gray, and then have mostly the feet and a little bit up from it be the dark Caviar later. I don't know if that's enough or not, but we shall see. Again, I'm trying to hurry up a little bit because I do want to blend some into this Manatee Gray before it's too late and it's too dry. I have this misting bottle right here, and I will mist it a little whenever I get to the part where I'm trying to make sure that it blends. Job that up in there a little bit. That doesn't matter. And I've got a lot of paint on my brush right now, so I'm going to keep going around until most of this part is done and then come back and try to blend a little. You don't want these to each be the identical amount of ombre either, because then it's going to look machine made, and part of the coolness, I'm just also dabbing the brush anywhere whenever I'm at eye level with it now, and I see anywhere where I can see a little bit of the wood through it. I'm even going up on the Manatee Gray and kind of dabbing in those holes with this gravel road. And rather than reaching around and moving around, it is helping a whole lot to turn this around, because as it gets to the other side, I can see more of the areas where I may have missed a little speck or something like that, and I'm filling them in. It may not even end up needing, because it's going to be, you know, a tad bit distressed. It's not like I'm going to try to sand it and have it look old. I'm not into that for this piece, but you know, we may go over it with a little bit of dry brushing in the Caviar or something like that at the end to tie it all together. And those are, you know, plans that don't have to be made from the very first second. I got out way more of this than I needed. We will be going up into the details of the, like the embellishments and things that are on here with a dark wax later on, so I don't want just the wood showing under that, but I do want to make sure that it, you know, that it is covered. Get all of that? Okay. Now there's still a bit left in here. I'm going to try to scrape it back into my thing here. I do not believe it's contaminated to where it would have been ruined in any way. If you did feel like it was contaminated or there was more of the other color on it or something like that, then you would have just had to waste that part. Now I'm going to wipe my brush off a little bit. Just doing it on a dry rag right here. And I'm grabbing back my lighter Manatee Gray. I'm going to just lightly mist with this misting bottle. You don't want to use a regular water bottle that'll, you know, shoot and splash the whole paint off of the dang thing. Getting just a little bit of this on here. And I'm going to just lightly back and forth over it, trying to get a little bit of a blend in there rather than just going straight from one color to the other. Probably going to need just a tad more of the Manatee Gray. I'm sure that's way too much, but it will be contaminated this time, so we'll just have to waste that. Okay, mist just a tad to make sure we can reactivate. This is the same way you would if we were gonna wet distress or something like that with the Dixie Belle. That you don't wait until it dries all the way for that. You do start that right in the beginning. Got too much on my brush. That is so pretty. I'm not a gray person at all, but these are very nice shades of gray, and it is looking very well together, and gray is so extremely popular. I'm probably going to be in love with it by the time I've used it so much lately for others. Where's the mister? Just enough. Just a tad on the tips of my brush. Then wiping the excess off. Trying to bring it down. And as I'm trying, keeping all of these strokes going in the same direction. I'm going down with them. If I try to go up and down and all around, I'm gonna muddy it up too much. I'm gonna try to let me mist this. Get this one from this direction so I can see it really well. Same thing, barely getting any on my tips. And this sort of gives another gray. This sort of blends enough to give us another gray in the picture here. I love how it's leaving some darker in the flowers there. There. Where's my rag? Wipe a little bit of this off because it is more muddied up a little bit with the darker shade that's coming between the two here, and I want to make sure to be lighter with it. Okay, I like it. She likes it. Hey, Mikey. Okay, now I'm going to go with the Caviar, which is it looks like a bluish black to me. But it's a very beautiful color, and I've been using it for on my sample board earlier today, so I had it out already. Let me Get some of this off my brush. That off of there. I don't know if this is going to be enough or not. It's not going to take much just to do the bottoms of these legs. Okay, here we go. I'm starting out coming up from the bottom, and then we'll come back through in a minute to blend from the top down. I'm going a little bit farther up than where my gray ends. Can't see this one, so just do that until I get back around to it. I'm feeling no drag at all or anything. You know how sometimes this is pretty thick paint, and sometimes whenever you have a, I'm gonna have to move around to do it this time. When you have a thick paint like that, sometimes you'll feel a drag, and that's when you would you can mist in your paint in your thing. You can mist your brush or mist the piece to get just a little bit of water mixed in. That's what's really fabulous about these paints as well. When you're on a drop cloth like this, instead of on a lot of times I'll use a little set of like dolly wheels that I have, which are fabulous as well. Then it's easier to reach the very bottom. But when you're on a drop cloth or something like that, you have to be extra careful, pay extra attention that you're getting all the way to the bottom. There's nothing's more frustrating than to think you're done, come back in and inspect it and have wood still showing on the bottom. Not that I have experience with that, right? I want to do this one down so bad, but that's the wrong thing. Up, up, up. This coat's up. I see a little speck there I missed. Oh man, I am down to hardly nothing left. We're at 28 minutes right now, so you're looking at practically a new end table in less than a half an hour. One paintbrush and 4 jars of paint. If you wanted to, you could have just purchased the Caviar and the drop cloth, the white and the black, and blended your own grays out of it. You know, added a little black to the white and then a little more and a little more, and not have to you know, go with the other colors. For me, I have them, and it was just much easier for me to, because I know I'm going to be doing more projects with them anyway. Okay. Luckily, I still had that little bit in here, and I'm going to wipe off my brush a little bit to get the majority of that Caviar off. If y'all are interested in the Dixie Belle Paint, I'll put my link in the comments, and you can go and check it out. If you've ever never tried Buddha's Brew Tangerine Sea Salt Kombucha, it's fantabulous. Okay, misted it just a tad. Now back into this. Now I'm going to come on the downstroke. On the downstroke. And even though I'm coming down, it's bringing some of the Caviar up. Because that's the way it works. Offload a little bit more off my brush, mist a little bit more, and drag down. There we go. That's pulling that Pulling that gray down. That's what we're wanting to do. These, if you're in Ritter, Louisiana, I have these bottles for sale here. But there you can, if you want a link to them, let me know and I'll put one in where you can get them on Amazon. But you can also get them at your like local beauty supply house. They're the same kind of misters that hairdressers use. And they put out just the right amount of mist. But I also sometimes mix like a teaspoon of paint in here, and I could mist this and be putting a little bit of a lighter gray or a little bit of a blue or a little bit of anything else I wanted to on here at the same time. I just touched it somewhere with my thumb. Offload. Bring down. Trying to get up in there just a little bit where I blended between the lighter gray and the darker gray and pull a little bit of that down too. I think it's looking awesome, if I do say so myself. It's dry and dragging. Mist, barely, lightly, pull down. As I pull down into that Caviar, into the black, it picks up just a little bit of that on the end of the brush, and I'm wanting to be rid of that. That's why I keep going one more time with my rag to offload. It's also why I like to work on a drop cloth. Load, pull. Right now it's still damp enough up at the top that I'm able to pull that down without even unloading any more of the, what is this one? The gravel road onto my brush when using the mister bottle. Shouldn't be going up right there, but I saw a little bit of an area where I could see the brown coming through. I'm going to need to look back in there and, oh, where's it at? I pulled too much gray down, and I'm going to try to get just a little bit of Caviar out of here. Come back up. But then again, we're trying to remember that we don't want it to look machine-made. This is man-made, woman-made. You can also mist right in here. Lighten that up just enough to give me a wash. Let me come back down. It's still dry. Not working quite fast as I like to. In floral school, we were taught there's 7 like things that you do whenever you're making a flower arrangement. And like it's, you know, find your focal point, put in your main flowers, put in your filler flowers, put in your greenery. And step 7 is leave it alone, because you're done and you're just messing things up. And I'm at step 7 right now, but I went too far down with the gray there, and I'm just gonna dab into the lid. That's usually a little bit thicker, drier paint, and I don't need much. Up, 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 up. Beautiful. Now I need to come down, down, down just a tad. Oh, I did it again. Okay. Okay, that's it. That's what we look like when it's the end of the day. Dump your brush in a great big bucket of water. See, here's mine. Boom. To protect it. Trash those. And I hope you can see the ombre of the finish. As it dries, you'll see more. I'll come back on when we put this finish on the top. And I think it's going to be really cute. And I appreciate you being here with me today. Bye. I don't know where to turn it off. I did this last time.